Hi, I'm Diana DeRosa, and I'm speaking with Nathan Horrocks. And Nathan has had films with the EQUUS Film and Arts Vets more than once, and this year he's bringing two films, wonderful films. He now lives in California, formerly from England, and the films that he has presented are The Fall and Equilibrium. So, Nathan, I'm going to let you take over first. Let's talk about Equilibrium. If you could just capsule the concept of the film first.
Well, Equilibrium's been a bit of a long process, really. Like both of these films have, really. But Equilibrium is an idea that came about from a car journey. Funny enough, was sat in a car with a jockey. I'm a former jockey myself, and I was going to want a jockey a lift to the races one day. A guy called Harrison Bezic, who's a jump jockey, or we call steeplechase rider here in the US. And I was giving him a lift to the races. And he started telling me about this his kind of life story, really, and how he came about getting into the sport of horse racing, because he actually didn't have a family background in the sport like I have. And I think what was really interesting was, from this conversation, he was kind of living two separate lives. In one side of his life, he was doing a lot of showing horses, which he was doing with his mum, and who was a very successful lady at buying and selling these types of horses for showing. And then on the other side of his life, he was a skateboarder. And what was great about that was he was saying that he would dress and act differently in both codes, which I found fascinating. And I've always, as a filmmaker, I've always been a fan of how the kind of extreme sports world has engaged a new audience and been filming around those types of sports. And what I wanted to do was try and gel those two sports together in some way. So through this story, he was telling me, I thought I would use those two codes and gel them together. But then I also found out he was a surfer as well. And, and I always think of riding horses as a very spiritual thing, because horses, really do speak to my soul. Hence the reason why we film, in this world of ours. But he was talking about surfing being a very spiritual thing for him, and that was his place of escape. From battling from these two worlds, the success of being a skateboarder, and then the world of being a showing rider. But unfortunately, there's a tragic event of this. His poor mum passed away from a stroke, and with that story led him into the process of learning to be a jockey, because he wanted to kind of turn his back on the world of showing. And after a while, him and his father would chat, and for some reason he wanted to really pursue this life as a steeplechase jockey, and he's done really well. He's rode many winners back in the UK, and he's had a really, really good season this year in the US, so over in Maryland and New York. So it was a story of trying to blend worlds together, and I wanted to try and show that whatever sport you're part of, if you love what you do, you can really embrace it. But I think the worlds of working with animals can really shine its way through into other sports. And I just wanted to try and show different audiences, different styles of living, really. And that was the key thing to the idea of the film.
Wow, I really love how you captured all that. I mean, that's great information about this film. It's there's always takeaways from these things, and I'm sure there are some specifics. I mean, you had to create and get that message across, but now that you look back at the film, what's your takeaways?
Well, my takeaways, because we funded this ourselves, this film at Equine Productions. It was a real passion project that we wanted to create, because we wanted to kind of show those different worlds of surfing, skating, and the world that we love and we're from, which is the equestrian world. And I think the takeaway from it was just trying to have more time to tell these types of stories. It was we had to do it over a number of years, and these small shoots each time, and gelling it all together. And if my takeaway from this whole thing was just try and create a bit more time into what we've in the story we've tried to tell. But I'm really proud of what we've managed to create. I think Harrison comes over fantastically in the way he speaks about his life and the tragic loss of his mum. She was a very influential person in his life, like all parents are, good or bad, and that's but she was a very, very big influence on his life. And I think that's what gives him the drive to really go after his, what his dreams are, which is to be a top sportsman in this sport of steeplechase riding.
Yeah, and I really do think that you captured that whole concept really well. And I know it couldn't have always been easy because it takes so much time. So let's move on to the fall, which wow. I mean, it's a story that I've heard about it with the jockeys for different things. It can be how much weight they are and what it is to struggle to do that. And then just the whole thing. So talk a little bit about the fall.
Well, the fall was a concept of came out of my own struggle of mental health and depression. Really, I went through my own battle with depression, and like all sports people, we're not very good at talking about that. We kind of hide it. And, everything's fine, and weakness you should never show. And because if you show weakness, that's something your competitors can latch onto. So. What I wanted to do was I wanted to show that I'm always trying to promote the sport of horse racing and the connection between animal and human. But with this story, I kind of wanted to show a darker side to our sport and how our humans are affected by the dieting, the pressures of competing. And also, we've seen quite an ugly side to social media over the last few years, and how that's really started to impact our athletes. Because in every race there is a result, and yourself that if you're doing well as a jockey, your a 20% strike rate is about as good as anybody can be. So 80% of the time you're being beat, so you're always looking for an excuse or a reason why the horse has been beaten in a race, and you're constantly trying not to burn any bridges, and that brings a lot of pressure to being as a life of a jockey. And I kind of wanted to show that side of this world, really. So it's my first ever drama. I've never shot a drama before. I've shot documentaries like Equilibrium that's been entered this year, but it was my first time working with actors, and it was a really exciting process, really, especially the casting process, which was trying to find someone that was authentic, that looked like a jockey but also acted like a jockey. If you look at many sports people, they're always on the front foot. They've always got a place to be. So, finding Daniel Thrace, who plays Tom, our lead character in the film, was a hard process. I think I auditioned something like 45 people, and lucky enough we found Daniel, and he really, really brought that character to life. There's someone that was kind of hiding behind this mask of everything's fine, but when I'm on my own, you can see this real struggle of breaking down, and especially when the hate of the tweets and the social media posts, which we actually use real tweets and real text messages that were sent to jockeys in this film. So I really wanted to shock the audience and really make them aware that the life of a jockey can be really, really hard, and can have a lasting impact on you mentally. As well as physically. And I just wanted to show that jockeys are human and we should be a little bit kinder in the world.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good story to tell. And I can't tell you how many times I've actually seen a jockey win a fabulous race and then thought to myself, it's not always like that. There's another side, because none of us, I don't care what we do, we know that we have great days and we have not so great days. But the question I want to ask you is, okay, we talk about the weight, we talk about, losing and stuff like that. Which one do you think is the hardest for a jockey?
Well, it's a combination of both, really, Danny. I mean, I'm not sure what you're like when you're hungry, but I get terribly, grumpy when I'm hungry. And, I often say to people, imagine waking up like that every day of your life. You're constantly battling the scales. So that affects your mood. And when your mood's affected, that then affects a certain outcome in the day. So, a winner will help kind of diminish those feelings. So I think it's a kind of combination of both. But what I also wanted to do was in this story is every one of us in life has a bad day at work. We all have a bad day at work, and that journey home, it can play in our brains. And and that's what this story is about: is this person having a bad day at work and what the impact is of that person getting home. And there was lots of things that were happening to our main character, Tom. But what I also wanted to show was the fact that Tom, who gets fired, from riding this horse because the horse falls. He seemed to be the person to be blamed for it. That's not him just losing out on money or success. That's a relationship he's made with that horse. You know, jockeys do care about their animals, and the horse that he loses the ride on is something that he'd been working on for a long time. And it's like how all of a sudden having your child taken away from you. And I really wanted to show that in this movie, where, you know, there's an emotional attachment to our animals that we work with and compete with, because they're fellow competitors of ours. You know, we're working together as a common goal to achieve, you know, a certain result, to please our owner or our trainer or the sport in some way. And I was keen to kind of get that across. And I have to say the impact it's had, because it got released last month on World Suicide Prevention Day, which was the 10th of October. And the reaction's been fantastic from the sport and from people outside the sport, saying that, they haven't realized that this is what a jockey's life is like. And, maybe we should be a little kinder to our athletes going forward.
Absolutely. You know, and I'd like to ask a little personal question from you. Obviously, you were a jockey and then you left it. Was that decision partly because of the pressure, or did you just move on to other things?
Yeah, no, it was because of the pressure, really, Diana. You know, it's a tough world being a sports person in any sport. You know, I'm not saying just jockeys, but the pressures of being a jockey are the fact that, you know, there's the dieting, but there's also they're all contractors at the end of the day. So if they don't ride, they don't get paid. So there's a financial burden to it as well. So I wanted to leave it, but I've always had this passion of storytelling, and I've also had a passion of horses. You know, I fell in love with this sport at a young age because my father was a jockey, and being around horses is still, you know, where I find my soul, basically. And, that's what I want to kind of follow, really, is my passion of filming horses and using them as a narrative to help tell the human story as well, because we all have them, don't we? It's great that when we come to the EQUUS Film Festival, we see all these human stories alongside these equine stories, and I think they're very important to us, and that's what I want to continue down the road of doing, is telling these human and equine stories that share a narrative.
I think that we're lucky that you have that knowledge, because you can bring it to the silver screen. And so I'm glad that you chose to go into this field, and I hope you continue. And I want to thank you for joining me. Do you have any last words you'd like to say?
Well, no. I just want to thank you for having me. It's been a crazy time at the moment. I'm currently sat in the jockeys' changing room here at Del Mar Racetrack for the Breeders' Cup. So I'm not sure when everyone's going to see this. The Breeders' Cup's probably going to be over, but I'm really looking forward to being part of the festival. I love coming to it. It's a shame we're not all going to be there in person, because I just love sharing stories with other filmmakers that have a passion for equines and equine sports or equine lifestyle. And I'm just really looking forward to seeing what other projects and other bits of art are going to be out there, and to help us enjoy.
Well, fabulous, and thank you very much. And I'm Diana DeRosa, reporting for the EQUUS Film and Arts Fest and the EQUUS Television Networks. And thank you again, Nathan.
Thank you.